rebounds, me-bounds, T-bounds. If it's coming off the backboard, that's mine. That's mine. Angel Reese is back in the building. Now, this can go one or two ways. One or three ways, really. Number one, there's a lot of bloopies, and we get some content.
Angel Reese has officially returned to Unrivaled, and the circumstances surrounding that comeback have sparked a wave of discussion that goes far beyond a routine roster move. What's turning heads isn't simply that she's back on the court, it's how the league maneuvered to make it happen. According to reports and insider chatter circulating among analysts and fans, the transaction that cleared the path involved a complicated three-team exchange executed mid-season, a timing that is typically avoided in most professional leagues because of how disruptive it can be to competitive balance and team chemistry. Moves like that are usually reserved for emergencies or unavoidable roster crises, not for reintegrating a player who wasn't active at the time. That's why observers are scrutinizing the situation so closely. The official explanation frames the deal as a strategic adjustment designed to strengthen multiple teams simultaneously. On paper, it sounds like a calculated basketball decision. But skeptics argue that the timing and structure suggest something more deliberate, an effort to bring back a high-profile personality whose presence carries marketing value as well as athletic talent. In emerging leagues especially, star power can influence ticket sales, streaming numbers, sponsorship interest, and social media engagement. Because of that, some commentators believe the move reflects business priorities just as much as competitive ones. The mechanics of the trade itself have fueled speculation. Instead of a straightforward one-for-one swap, several players were reportedly shifted across different rosters in a chain reaction that resembled a chessboard reset rather than a typical transaction. Analysts noted that mid-season deals of that complexity can affect locker room morale, playbook continuity, and on-court rhythm. Teams spend weeks building chemistry, learning each other's tendencies, and refining rotations. Altering those dynamics suddenly can create uncertainty. Yet the league approved the move anyway, suggesting that decision-makers believed the potential upside outweighed the risks. Supporters of the decision argue that bringing back a recognizable figure can energize both fans and players. They point out that new leagues often rely on headline-grabbing moments to establish identity and attract audiences in crowded sports markets. From that perspective, facilitating Reese's return could be seen as an investment in visibility and long-term growth rather than favoritism. Critics, however, counter that bending logistical norms or even appearing to do so sets a precedent that might raise questions about fairness if similar flexibility isn't extended to others in the future. What makes the situation particularly intriguing is the contrast between the polished public narrative and the speculation circulating behind the scenes. Official statements emphasize competitive balance and mutual benefit, while online discussions dissect every detail looking for clues about the real motivation. That gap between messaging and perception is where much of the controversy lives. In modern sports culture, transparency is almost as important as results, and whenever fans sense that something unusual happened off the court, curiosity tends to intensify rather than fade. So the conversation isn't just about one player returning. It's about what her return represents for the league's priorities, for its credibility, and for how emerging competitions navigate the intersection of sport and entertainment. Whether the move ultimately proves brilliant or misguided will depend on what happens next, because in professional athletics, perception can shift quickly once games start being played again.
WNBA are the same two people that are just moving around pieces on their chessboard because they want to. They're playing checkers with y'all because you guys are just pieces on a board. Bunch of pawns on the board, dare I say. But it could only go one of three ways. We get bloopies, ratings go up, ratings stay the same. If they go down, yikes. If they go down. Let's get right into it. Please like the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
What makes the timing of this deal particularly noteworthy is that it occurred after the season was already underway. By that stage, most teams have settled into rotations, established play styles, and developed interpersonal rhythm. Altering rosters once competition has begun can disrupt that equilibrium, which is why mid-season trades, especially complex ones, tend to be relatively rare. Analysts who follow league operations closely pointed out that such moves require coordination across multiple fronts: contract logistics, scheduling adjustments, travel planning, and integration into existing systems. Completing all of that quickly suggests a strong organizational incentive. The publicly released details left some observers puzzled. Reports indicated that roster spots shifted in ways that weren't entirely explained in official summaries, prompting fans to speculate about what each side truly gained. In standard trades, the exchange of value is usually straightforward: one team fills a positional need while another requires future assets or depth. When the rationale isn't immediately obvious, people start searching for alternative explanations. Some concluded that the primary objective wasn't purely tactical but centered on visibility and buzz. Social media added another layer to the narrative when Nafisa Collier playfully urged Reese to return in a widely shared clip. Many viewers interpreted the exchange as friendly banter between competitors, while others saw it as evidence of how strongly the league wanted her presence. Online interactions can be ambiguous that way. Tone is hard to measure, and audiences often project their own assumptions onto brief posts or videos. Still, the moment circulated widely enough to become part of the broader conversation about her comeback. From a business standpoint, it's easy to understand why leagues emphasize recognizable personalities. Star athletes can serve as entry points for new fans who might not yet know team histories or standings. Promotional campaigns frequently highlight individuals rather than franchises because faces are easier to market than logos. That strategy doesn't necessarily mean a league is prioritizing celebrity over competition. Sometimes it's simply acknowledging how modern sports consumption works in the digital era. Yet critics caution that perception of preferential treatment can create tension if other players feel overlooked. Locker rooms thrive on trust and a sense of fairness. Even the suggestion that rules were adjusted for one person can become a distraction, whether or not it's accurate. That's why transparency in decision-making is often emphasized by sports administrators, not only to clarify reasoning but to maintain confidence among athletes and fans alike. In this case, the league's leadership has maintained that every move followed established guidelines. Whether the public accepts that explanation may depend on how smoothly the rest of the season unfolds. If teams adapt quickly and competition remains strong, the controversy could fade. If disruptions occur, the transaction will likely be revisited as a pivotal turning point.
Desiree Stevens, are you okay with just getting traded on a whim? Let me know your thoughts, Desiree, in the comment section. I'm just curious what you guys think. Let's get right into it. WNBA star my Angel Reese will return to Unrivaled to defend the championship. Oh yeah. What trade allowed Angel Reese to join?
Stepping back, the larger significance of this situation lies in what it reveals about the evolving ecosystem of professional women's basketball. Emerging leagues operate in a delicate balance between establishing competitive credibility and capturing public imagination. Every major decision, especially one involving a recognizable figure, becomes part of a broader narrative about identity and direction. Reese's return, therefore, isn't just a personnel update, it's a case study in how sports organizations navigate growth, publicity, and competitive integrity all at once. The location factor adds another dimension as well. With promotional activities centered around events tied to Miami, the league is positioning itself within a vibrant sports market known for entertainment appeal and media visibility. Cities with strong tourism and nightlife reputations often serve as strategic hubs for showcases and special matchups because they attract both local fans and traveling audiences. Hosting high-profile appearances there can amplify exposure far beyond the arena itself. For players, moments like this can shape reputations in lasting ways. A strong performance could reinforce the perception that the league made a savvy move in facilitating her return. A quiet outing, on the other hand, might intensify scrutiny from those already skeptical. That pressure is part of the reality of being a headline figure. Visibility magnifies both success and struggle. Veteran athletes often say that managing expectations becomes as important as refining skills once you reach that level of attention. League officials, meanwhile, will likely be monitoring more than just the scoreboard. They'll be analyzing viewership metrics, social engagement, merchandise activity, and sponsor feedback to evaluate whether the decision achieved its intended goals. Modern sports organizations rely heavily on data analytics to assess impact, and a high-profile comeback offers a valuable sample for measuring fan response. Those insights could influence future strategies, including how aggressively the league pursues star-driven promotions or mid-season roster adjustments. Fans, of course, will interpret events through their own lenses. Supporters may see the situation as proof that the league is ambitious and willing to make bold moves. Critics might view it as evidence that entertainment considerations sometimes overshadow competitive ones. Both perspectives can coexist, which is part of what makes sports culture so dynamic. Debate itself keeps audiences engaged, ensuring that storylines remain active long after games end. In the end, the true verdict won't come from speculation or headlines but from performance over time. If the season concludes with compelling matchups, rising interest, and strong competition, this episode may be remembered as a turning point that helped the league gain traction. If not, it could become a cautionary tale discussed whenever questions arise about balancing star appeal with structural consistency. Either way, Reese's return has already accomplished one undeniable thing: it has everyone watching closely to see what happens next.
WNBA star Angel Reese is returning to Unrivaled. On Wednesday, what charge was James Pierce Jr. James Pierce, you're a piece of shit. I talked about this on my football channel, you're a piece of shit. WNBA star Angel Reese is returning to Unrivaled. On Wednesday, the Miami-based 3-on-3 league announced Reese would be coming back for her second season, after initially opting not to play. She is rejoining Rose BC, the team she helped win Unrivaled's inaugural title. Well, that's not true. We're one paragraph in, and we're already telling lies. Angel Reese didn't play in the final game.
For many observers, the narrative surrounding Reese's public image traces back to her unforgettable collegiate championship showdown against Caitlin Clark, a game widely credited with drawing unprecedented attention to women's basketball. That matchup became a cultural flashpoint, replayed endlessly across highlight reels, talk shows, and social platforms. In the years since, commentators have often pointed to that moment as a launching pad that elevated Reese from standout athlete to nationally recognized personality. Branding experts frequently cite it as a textbook example of how a single high-stakes performance can redefine an athlete's visibility almost overnight. There's no denying that the spotlight from that game translated into opportunities. Sponsorship deals, interviews, endorsement partnerships, and media appearances followed, reinforcing her image as one of the sport's most recognizable young stars. Supporters argue that she embraced that attention skillfully, turning momentum into a platform that helped bring new viewers to women's basketball as a whole. In that sense, they see her not just as a beneficiary of the spotlight but as someone who actively expanded it. Still, questions linger among critics who wonder how much of that visibility translates into measurable league growth when she isn't playing. Some analysts reviewing broadcast data from early season matchups noted that audience figures remained relatively steady during her absence, reportedly hovering within the same general range week to week. For a startup competition launching during a crowded sports calendar, those numbers were considered respectable. Yet they also fueled debate. If a player is widely described as a transformative draw, shouldn't her presence create a noticeable ratings surge? That line of questioning has become a recurring theme in sports commentary. It touches on a broader issue about star influence versus league momentum. Sometimes a league's viewership depends less on any single athlete and more on scheduling, promotion, or match competitiveness. Other times, one personality truly does shift the numbers. Determining which category applies isn't always straightforward, especially when sample sizes are small or when multiple variables change simultaneously. Critics who are skeptical of the hype frame Reese's return as a test case. They argue that if her impact is as significant as supporters claim, upcoming broadcasts should show a clear uptick in engagement. Fans on the opposite side say that expectation is unfair, noting that audience growth usually happens gradually rather than instantly. They emphasize that building a fan base is more like cultivating a garden than flipping a switch. It takes time, consistency, and multiple compelling storylines, not just one headline-grabbing name. What's undeniable is that anticipation has increased. Whether driven by curiosity, loyalty, or debate, more people are paying attention to see what happens next. And in sports media, attention itself is a form of currency. Even controversy can function as promotion, because it keeps a league in conversations that might otherwise move on to other topics. In that sense, Reese's return has already achieved something measurable. It has people talking again, dissecting every angle, and waiting to see whether the next set of numbers confirms or challenges the assumptions being made.
Plays Hive at 8:45 Eastern on TNT and Chew TV. The game can also be streamed on Max. Angel Reese comes back against Money Mitch. Put him in a ditch. Wow. This shakes things up. I can't wait to watch the highlights, the boobies on Twitter.
The scheduling of Reese's first game back has also drawn attention. Her debut is slated for February 20th, shortly after a one-on-one showcase event concludes, in a matchup positioned squarely in a high-visibility time slot. The broadcast will air on TNT and stream on Max, a dual-platform arrangement designed to maximize reach across traditional television and digital audiences. Media strategists often highlight such scheduling as a signal that a league is placing particular emphasis on a game, especially when it involves a returning star or a storyline expected to generate strong interest. Her opponent that night will feature a roster recently adjusted through the same transaction that made her return possible, adding an extra layer of intrigue. Analysts love matchups with built-in narratives, and this one certainly qualifies, a newly configured lineup facing a high-profile player whose arrival reshaped multiple teams. From a promotional standpoint, it's almost tailor-made for discussion panels, preview segments, and social media countdowns. The more angles a game offers, the easier it is for broadcasters to build anticipation. Observers have also noted the symbolic dimension of the situation. One of the players moved in the deal had contributed significantly to a previous championship run, which naturally leads to questions about how teams weigh past contributions against present opportunities. Professional sports can be ruthless in that regard. Roster decisions are often driven by projections rather than sentiment. Executives must consider future matchups, marketability, and long-term planning, sometimes making choices that seem harsh from the outside. Critics frame this as an example of the business realities underlying modern athletics, a reminder that professional leagues operate at the intersection of competition and commerce. Supporters counter that such moves are simply part of the industry's normal evolution, especially for newer organizations still experimenting with formats and lineups. In their view, adaptability isn't a flaw, it's a necessity for growth. The promotional push surrounding Reese's return suggests the league expects significant interest. Advertising campaigns, highlight packages, and pre-game features have already begun circulating, emphasizing her personality and playing style. Whether that attention translates into measurable increases in viewership or attendance will be closely watched by analysts who track performance metrics. Early numbers often shape narratives that persist for the rest of a season, so this debut carries weight beyond a single box score. Ultimately, the game represents more than just another date on the schedule. It's a test of assumptions about star influence, audience behavior, and the effectiveness of bold midseason decisions. By the time the final buzzer sounds, commentators will already be comparing expectations with reality, looking for signs that the gamble paid off or clues that the debate will continue.